that he was going to end up getting overthrown. And so what does he do? He does what has been done for hundreds of years in the past by leaders who are insecure when they want to change the direction. He starts a war. And the war he starts is a fake war. He starts a war against people who aren't his enemies. The Ukrainian people have done nothing to Putin. But he creates a massive propaganda campaign claiming that the Ukrainians are Nazis and fascists and that they're going to murder Russian-speaking people in eastern Ukraine. And he runs this on the television 24 hours a day. And then he goes in and says, I'm going to save our poor brothers and sisters. And they go into eastern Ukraine. First Crimea, and then the rest. And it worked. Putin successfully changed people's anger away from him and towards people who weren't even his enemies. The only problem is, by doing so, he's created an economic crisis for himself. And the economic crisis makes people even more angry. And so he has no choice but to keep on stirring up this pot of nationalism and hatred towards the West. And so Ukraine is not the end of his adventures, it's just the beginning of his adventures. And the adventures will find him in the Baltics, it will find him in northern Kazakhstan, it will find him in Georgia again, and any place where he can go at a relatively low cost but big effect for his public popularity.
Putin recently said in some recent interview that he's not crazy to start a war with NATO.
Well, first of all, Putin is a liar. He consistently, openly, and regularly lies, and the objective evidence proves it. So you shouldn't ignore anything that Putin says. So the question is he crazy enough to go to war with NATO? No, nobody is crazy enough to go to war with NATO. He'd lose the war in a day. But Putin is also a very slippery little man. And so what will he do if he wants to go to war with NATO? The same thing he does in Crimea. He sends in provocateurs. He finances criminals. He sends in mercenaries. And eventually creates a problem in the Baltics, in Estonia or Latvia or Lithuania. That's an invasion by all measures other than the fact that there's no lines of tanks moving into Vilnius or Narva or whatever. And so we're living in a world where the definitions of war are so different than they were 50 years ago, that he will absolutely go to war, but we're not going to call it a war, and he'll continue to deny it's a war until after he's fully succeeded.
You think that he believes in what he says, or is it just a cold-blood politician who has his goals?
So every single policy, nationalism, religion statement that Putin makes is completely cynical. He doesn't have any beliefs. He is as cold and unemotional and unsympathetic a character you'll ever come across. And he's just a practical man who's saying, what is his objective? His objective is he wants to die naturally in office. But nobody knows, truly nobody knows, the chemistry of a revolution. It's impossible. It's based on two different factors. One is how angry people get, and the other is how scared they are. And Putin is trying to increase the fear because people are getting angrier. But at any point, these two things can get out of balance. And there's no way of measuring them properly. And so he doesn't know. We don't know. Nobody knows.
It's really interesting to listen to successful businessman who is talking about revolution. It's not very usual. Seems like you are coming back to family tradition.
Well, I mean, I think the main family tradition in my family, my grandfather was a was the head of the Communist Party. My reason for becoming a businessman was a rebellion against communism, and that's the only thing that my grandfather's history did was because I was trying to move in the other direction. I moved very strongly in the direction of becoming a businessman, but it had no impact, zero, in terms of any impressions of me in Russia.
But people you dealt with were aware of your family past?
No, nobody knew or cared. The only person who I ever mentioned it to was I had a meeting with Gennady Zhuganov, the head of the Communist Party, in the lead up to the presidential elections in 1996, and I was at a dinner in Davos, Switzerland, in which he was the special guest, and I mentioned to him my communist connections, but it didn't have any impact on him either.
What was his reaction?
I don't think he's even a communist. I think he's just a fake politician, just playing that role for the purpose of.
So how do you describe yourself? You are a businessman or you are activist?
Well, I used to be a businessman, and now I'm a full-time activist.
So when you realized that business is not so sexy for you anymore?
Well, it's you know, when I had a much higher calling, which is to get justice for my murdered lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky. At that point, you know, money is important to survive off of, but you don't need that much money, and money for the sake of getting more money is kind of an empty way of living your life. And nobody remembers rich people after they die. Why don't they remember it? Because there's nothing to remember. But people do remember people who have made a difference in the world.
Well, you are one of them.
Well,
already,
I mean, let's see. I hopefully, you know, knock on wood, if they don't kill me.
I didn't mention. I didn't mean that.
If they don't kill me, then I've got a lot more things to change in the world.
Do you feel safe?
No. This is a very dangerous place to be. But I'm not sure there's any safe place to be. If Vladimir Putin and the FSB want to kill you, they'll kill you. There's no place to hide.
And so you are not going to hide.
There's no point in hiding. If they're going to kill me, they'll kill me. But I'm going to make sure that everybody knows who killed me if I get killed.
Well, thank you very much for your time then. We are really sorry for being late and maybe disrupt your schedule for today.
Not at all.
It was really a big pleasure to meet you and talk to you.
Thank you.
I hope that all your plans, including changing the world, will succeed. And I will, as a journalist, I will closely follow it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we would like to congratulate having the courage to reveal and publish and leak all those information. That's important.
Thank you.
That's a limited edition of Prost Pens, which we award to people who have the courage to write the stories.
Thank
you.
you.
You are also a writer.
So how should I address this?
My name is Jakub. J-A-K-U-B.
K-U-B. Okay. There you go. And I promise to sign one for you. So